What's going on, guys? It's Simo. So today I'm bringing to you a video on the best of Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2019. I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at 2019 in its entirety, to take a step back and appreciate all the good things that actually happened in this game, because frankly, there were a lot of things to be grateful for that happened, and I think if we're looking towards the future and the betterment of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I think we're taking some steps in the right direction. Now I'm gonna bring you guys the worst of Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2019 tomorrow, but I thought I'd start on a positive note because that's what I'd prefer, and I hope you guys enjoy. But before we get into it, I want to let you know that we have Pro Play Tour Las Vegas coming up on December 15th. This is awesome because there's a Konami sanctioned regional on the 14th, so there's two events in one weekend, both at the same venue, so that's fantastic. Our event is a $2,000 cash prize pool event, only 20 bucks to enter, and if you get your invite, you're invited to the $10,000 cash prize pool event taking place in January. So links are in the description if you want to pre-register, and I hope to see you guys there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first thing I want to acknowledge is one of the best parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2019 is that FTK decks and Extra Link strategies are nowhere nearly as prominent as they used to be. 2018 honestly could go down in history as like the year of the FTK because it was just awful. It's like every time they banned one FTK, another one came out of nowhere, and they just couldn't keep up with it. But now looking at 2019, wasn't really so bad. There was a few unhealthy interactions that we had to deal with. Rongaminiad was one off the top of my head. There was also, there's still some FTKs running around even to this very day. Gem Knight FTK, I think Pendulum Soul's an FTK with like Tempest Magician, but like these FTKs are not nearly as prolific as they used to be, and I think that's a good thing. They're not like completely dominating the meta. I don't think there's been like an FTK deck that dominated the meta, honestly, the entire year, so I think that's a pretty good thing. So I think we should all be grateful for the fact that we're not like 2018 whatsoever in that regard. The next on my list of best things about Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2019 is that despite the stale metagame, there's actually tons of diversity. Can you guys remember a time where there was this many decks that were able to do well at competitive levels? You see at the YCSs when I'm bringing you guys my meta-analysis videos, and you see all the different decks that are either making it into Top Cut or like one win away from making it into Top Cut as well. Despite the fact that there's still like 4 or 5 decks that are utterly dominating the metagame, and we'll get more into that in the worst of 2019. Frankly, I think this is a very good thing. I think people in general are enjoying playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now because, yes, there are the same strategies, however, there's the potential for so many other decks to actually have a vying chance at being able to top one of these YCS events or just do really well. We've seen some absolutely absurd feature matches this year, and I think just because of the way the format shaped up, that's generally a good thing. We can't really say that about every year, especially, again, if we're going to refer to like to FTK days, where those decks would just completely and utterly dominate Top Cut, whereas now, yeah, there's still going to be meta decks. There's always going to be top meta decks that are going to take up a majority of the pie chart percentage, but I don't think we've been in a time where this many decks were able to do well. There's like 10 or 20 different decks that are playable at the moment, and sure, they may not be as good as some of the top meta contenders, but the fact that you can play those strategies and actually do decently well, especially against some of the top meta contenders, I definitely think that's a good thing. Now, as an extension to that, another amazing aspect of 2019 was the fact that the barrier to entry and affordability of some of the top tier decks was at its lowest point that I can remember in quite some time. You were able to acquire some tier 1 strategies for only like a couple $100 during some instances throughout the year, and of course it's going to fluctuate, right? But when you look at it in context, when some decks, usually around average, you're going to have to shell out several $100s, sometimes over $1,000 depending on where the meta is, just to be able to play at a competitive level. But the fact that you're able to play these same decks for maybe like a couple $100 or maybe even less than 100 in some instances, I did plenty of videos bringing you guys content like that, that's incredible. The fact that the price points are so low means it's going to invite more players in because they don't have to commit as much money to play, and that's really good because they don't feel like it's pay to win, and then it just pretty much is good all around. There's like no downside if the game is more affordable, and there's also other reasons for this as well, which we're going to get into a little bit later on, but the more people that have access to the game, I think the better. Now, in tandem with the cheap meta strategies, there had to be a conduit to enable that to happen, right? Well, that's actually due in part start to some incredible sealed products. So I want to go ahead and give some shout outs to some product that was actually very good and some of the best sealed product we've seen over the years of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. So I want to start out by shouting out the Salamangreat structure deck and the Order of the Spellcaster structure deck, because both of these decks essentially helped enable tier 1/tier 2 strategies and made them incredibly affordable. And yes, you know, you still need Signet Mining for Salamangreat. If you have Phantasme for it, that's great. And for Pendulum, there obviously is cards you still need in the extra deck to still be able to play it at like the top tiers of competitive play. But frankly, it's very rare that we get structure decks that are just like buy 3 of this and you have like a basically tier 1 deck at your disposal. The last time we had that was Monarchs, and I think that's incredible that we have that, and I really want to see this more often because again, it's just an easy entry point for people to say, hey, buy 3 of that structure deck, and then you've seen a couple cards, and then you have a deck that you can actually take to locals or take to a regional and feel pretty good about it, compared to something like, say, a regular starter deck that's not really going to offer that same benefit. And then there's a few products I want to shout out that help reduce the barrier to entry of playing even further because of the reprints they provided. First up is Dual Power. Dual Power was incredible because it appealed to the 3 audiences that I perceived to be out there: the casuals, the competitive, and the collector audience, and it was a really big hit in a lot of players' eyes. But then we got the 2019 Megatins, and holy shit, we just lost our minds, because not only did this set offer reprints of some of the most in-demand competitive cards of the last 4 core sets, but it also offered them in different rarities. So if there were good cards of lower rarity, they got rarity bumped, making them even more collectible. But if there were expensive cards that came out initially as like secret rare, they downgraded them to ultra rare to make them more easily accessible to players who might be playing on a budget or maybe have not acquired them up to this point. And if that weren't enough, there was Megatin promos that were game-changing and were something that a lot of people were looking forward to help shake up the game significantly, and even to this day, Nibiru pretty much dictates how our metagame works. There's also the artwork cards by Kazuki Takahashi, which if you're into that from a collector standpoint, that's awesome as well. The tins are just gorgeous in their own right. Like, this is, honestly, this might be one of my favorite sealed products of all time, just because it did everything right. You really can't say too much about it, aside from the fact that it's a still randomly assorted product. But there was another product that managed to fix that problem, and that was Dual Devastator. And Dual Devastator is an incredible stepping stone for anyone who used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! To get back into the game, because by having Dual Devastator, you can say, look, you've been out of the game for a few years, pick up a box or 2 of this, and you're gonna have pretty much every single staple card that you're gonna need to upgrade your deck and get it up to standard, so that way you're actually gonna have a fighting chance if you decide to enter any tournaments in 2019. Dual Devastator wasn't perfect, but the foundation is there for the future for Dual Devastator to continue, and I really hope they continue to make this type of product, because the easier it is for more players to play the game, the more people you're going to attract, and it's ultimately just going to be beneficial for everyone. Another thing I really liked about Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2019 was the inclusion of prismatic secret rares. Now, this is a bit controversial. Personally, I would prefer ultimate rares back. I know some people would rather have ghost rares back, but honestly, I feel like prismatics are fine. I think what I like about it the most is that it actually still adds an element of surprise into sealed booster boxes, because what was disappointing about sealed booster boxes before, after they started, you know, discontinuing all those older rarities, was that once you got your 2 secret rares, unless you got some sort of misprint factory error box, there was really no more surprise in the booster box, right? You pretty much knew what you had, and everything else wasn't really worth too much. But those prismatic secret rares add a completely new element to this, and it actually helps retain the value of those sealed booster boxes. And I think it's fun too, because it's like this lottery card that people get excited about. People lose their minds if they pull a prismatic, and for good reason. They're very rare, they're very sought after, and they're very expensive. So I'm happy that they reintroduced these. Again, I still wish it was ultimate rares, but honestly, I'll take it. I'm gonna be a little bit biased about this next one, but Konami reaching out to content creators I think is highly beneficial for the health of this game moving forward. Clearly, I'm not talking about myself for obvious reasons, but the fact that they're working with my colleagues like Lithium and Farfa and having them commentate the European YCSs. In Europe, they're also having community days where they invite the content creators out to maybe give them some exclusive reveals, or just talk to the creators about the overall sentiment of the game as a whole. Even here in North America, they're actually reaching out and doing giveaways to some of the content creators just to give back and show their appreciation. It maybe can help, you know, drive and expose some new product that they might do, or just get some information out there about something, but you guys get something out of it, the content creators get something out of it, and Konami gets more publicity, which is ultimately what they want. So really everybody wins in that instance, and I think it's very good that they've decided to take that route. And the last thing I want to touch on when it comes to all the best things about Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2019 is that the game is in a relatively good place. I think people are genuinely enjoying playing the game right now, and I think the attendance numbers at tournaments is reflecting this. We're still breaking records when it comes to tournament attendance, so we're seeing some of the biggest success in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now as a whole. It's bigger than it's ever has been, and I think that's incredible. And yeah, obviously there's still things that can be fixed, and we're going to talk about that in my video tomorrow in the worst things about Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2019, but overall, I think people are just genuinely happy with playing the game. There's a lot of good things when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, and ultimately, I think 2019 was actually a fairly good year when it came to Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially coming out of 2018, because that was just a mess. But overall, I think a lot of people are happy. Maybe I'm being a little bit optimistic, but relatively speaking, I think the game is in a pretty good state. But guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.